Picture this. You wake up naked and injured next to a dumpster behind a Burger King. Weird by itself, but even weirder, you have no idea who you are. This is Historical Events That Don't Make Sense. My name is Raeann, and I am here to explore everything weird, wacky, and just plain mysterious. Now, we're gonna just get right into it. We are talking about the mysterious finding of Benjaman Kyle. 2004 was a wonderful year in the United States. Janet Jackson had her infamous Super Bowl halftime performance, Facebook launches, and The Incredibles were released into theaters, plural. More interesting than all of that, though, was the awakening of a mysterious man who now calls himself Benjaman Kyle. Let me do some introduction to the show, which I should have done before I talked about the year that this event occurs, because that's how I usually do things.
He's a professional.
But that's fine. Hey, what's up? This is the second edition of the new updated Historical Events That Don't Make Sense. I'm sure that you care about that. Yeah, if you're new here, welcome. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you for listening. Why don't you head over to YouTube too, where we'll have some visualness to it. And if you're watching on YouTube, but you prefer to do things podcasty, why don't you give a listen on Spotify? I kind of lost the train of thought that I'm in. So we're going to keep going. Start with the actual story.
It's about time.
If you hear some little nibbles in the background, well, that's just the cats eating their treats. Today's fidget, a threading needle. Cool. Wow. All right, so back to Benjaman Kyle. He has, kind of... if I'm talking about a person, I like to go into the background, figure out who they are, how they grew up, get some background history. But Benjaman has no idea how, where, or who he grew up as. Really, the only thing he knew, or thinks that he knows, is that his first name was Benjaman.
I'm Benjaman.
That's... When he woke up in 2004, that just felt right for him. And I do have to note, though, that it's not even spelt normally. So it's kind of interesting that he thinks that he knows his name and specifically had it spelled like this, because it's spelled Benjaman. But yeah, he kind of knew his name, but he didn't even recognize his own face in the mirror when he woke up. He had no idea. His amnesia was that bad.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
Okay. I don't know why I put that there. There's gonna be, the majority of the episodes over the next couple months are gonna be things that I wrote months ago. So it's gonna be really
Awkward.
So maybe I should not write episodes until we get closer to that, but we're working ahead. Anyway, we're going to set the scene. It's August 31st, 2004 in Georgia. So, hot as heck. This innocent, poor Burger King employee steps out of the back, probably taking out the trash to the dumpster. And, they say that the last thing you want in your Burger King burger is somebody else's foot fungus, but the last thing you want by your Burger King burger is a sweaty, naked, and unconscious man. Yeah, I do think I'm really funny, and yes, I still quote that every other day. Not a lie. So, the employee, poor guy, he did call the police, and by the time that the police arrived, this man was awake. He had no identification on him. He was completely nude. And he had been assaulted somehow, like beat up, I'm pretty sure. And he was also covered in fire ant bites. And he was dealing with like cataracts, so he couldn't even see, he could just see shapes. Which, if I was that man, there was an echo there. If I was that man, either the Burger King employee or Benjamin freaked out as frick. So Benny Boy spent a while in both medical and psychiatric hospitals. Makes sense. But there was actually a charity organization that arranged for his cataract surgery. So Benjamin was finally able to see after a while, but he looked in the mirror, and like I mentioned, he couldn't recognize his own face. And that's kind of where the, like, investigation begins, kind of, I think. After being able to see and getting the medical and psychiatric help that he needed, years went by, and Ben still had absolutely no idea who he was. And the FBI had to get involved to try and figure out his identity. I scratched my face. There were extensive publicity campaigns, but even then, his identity was not identified. Yeah, and so, horrible, like, situation already. But since Benny didn't have a social security card or a birth certificate, he couldn't even get a job and try to live a normal life. He just kind of had to suffer and try to figure out who he was. So if you are any way familiar with the true crime community at all, then you might have a lot of information about genetic testing and just how far that has come since even 2004. And so today, DNA is being used to try and find his identity. There are still trying to figure out who he is. And a solid number of families with genetic links have come up, but it doesn't seem as though a solid connection has been found. But there is a lot of hope that soon Benjaman Kyle will find out who he is and what happened to him. Once he finds his identity, though, the mystery isn't over. I kind of think that's when the investigation really begins, because Ben was clearly attacked. He woke up beaten and bloody behind the Burger King, and somebody did that to him. So that case will need to be solved as well. And yeah, that's kind of it. It's a really short story, but I thought it was really interesting and something that I wanted to share. It's been a few months since I wrote this. I want to see if there are any updates on this man. But yeah, there hasn't been any information coming up of it since. If anything does happen, then I'm sure we'll have to do a recap episode. But yeah, that was a super short episode. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to share that information. I thought, it's weird, wacky, and doesn't make any sense. So it really fits the, vibe of the podcast. I want to add another fun fact there in here before we leave each other, but his initials, Benjaman Kyle, BK. Where was he found? Burger King.
And BK, have it your way. You're wrong.
Yeah, that is a thing. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this pretty short episode. I hope it was still entertaining for you. We'll be back here next week with another episode of Historical Events That Don't Make Sense. Thank you for listening and or watching. So I'm just sitting here doing the edit, and apparently Benjamin knows who he is. And he found out in like 2015. I don't know how I missed this, but his identity isn't public. His like true identity isn't public, so maybe that's what it is. But he found who he is, and apparently he's gonna or already has his social security number tattooed on his back, so in case this happens again. I feel a little dumb that I didn't find this, but we're gonna blame previous couple months ago Raeann for not getting that research in. I don't know why I didn't find it when I was searching like during the actual episode recording. But I'm just searching for like a picture and a graphic for how to spell his name. And I came across articles super easily. Obviously, I'm a great researcher. Benjamin knows who he is, but we don't know what happened to him. And from what I saw now, I don't know if they're doing much investigation. But I don't know.